Everyone's thinking, Sharanya, finally you changed your clothing. Hi everyone, welcome back to Unduck Your Privacy, a series in which I teach you how to take your privacy a little bit more seriously. In this episode, we're going to talk about how much your phone knows about you. And just like the internet, your phone knows quite a lot. So, I am going to segregate this particular video on the basis of the shields I taught you before. The first segment is about how to protect your information, your data, against other human beings. And the second would be how to protect your data against other companies. For starters, I would like to clarify that I'm going to try and make this video as operating system agnostic as I can, in the sense that it won't matter whether your phone is an Android or an iOS or Linux or by any chance Windows. It won't matter. I'm going to give you basic idea of what to do, and that way you'll be able to move ahead. So the first segment of this video is how to protect your phone data against other human beings. So the first part, where we are trying to protect our data, our information from other human beings, right? This part has been repeated by me in the very first video, so you can skip it if you watched that. But bear in mind how your phone is locked. The biometric mechanism was created, I'm assuming, by people who don't live in the same society as us. In Indian families and South Asian families, we are constantly living with our families. We are maybe living in spaces with other people in the same room or in the same house, right? Which means that if someone wants access to our phone and something on our phone, biometrics is the easiest way to do it. If someone's sleeping, you can just literally touch your phone to their hand and it unlocks, right? A numeric keypad, like a numeric password, works way better because you can't really gain use of it unless the other person is conscious. Obviously, you can always go ahead and look at someone's phone and see what their password is, but that's a little bit more difficult. But there's another way to get past that as well. The second layer of this is that don't rely on one password. So let's just say I am a 24-year-old woman who's living in my house, and my parents are like, oh, is she seeing someone? And I don't want people to know that I'm seeing someone, right? But my mom, my dad, everyone uses my phone. They need it every once in a while. So what I do is, wherever I'm talking to people, let's just say if I'm talking to people on Bumble or Tinder, right? I can block that app specifically. I can hide that app specifically. I can put a password on that app specifically. Now, it is really good if your phone allows you to do that without any additional apps. When we were teenagers, we would have games or we would have things on our phone that we didn't want other people to see, right? And we would install a third-party app to put a lock on that. That's a bad idea. And that's a bad idea because it kind of affects our shield number 2, shield against other organizations, right? While that is true, it could also be like a third-party app that is buggy. So this happens with children sometimes, where they would just get a third-party app and they would install it and use it to lock an app that contains data that they would rather not share with other people, and that could lead to scams and them being blackmailed. And obviously, as an adult, you're not impervious to it. So it's a good idea to bear this in mind when you're getting a phone. Does your phone allow you to block or lock apps that you don't want other people to have access to? If you are using third-party apps, it would be a very, very, very good idea to check what data they collect, to what extent do they have access to your the app that you are locking. But this is all a matter of disclosure, if I'm being very honest. There are very few ways for you to check whether what they're saying is true, and even if you are able to check, there's very little enforcement in case something goes wrong. Now, one myth I want to break about biometrics is that biometrics are backed up on the cloud. That's not how it works. phone companies usually will store your biometrics in the device that you are using, so it doesn't get backed up anywhere. And biometrics includes your fingerprints and facial recognition. A lot of countries have laws against people snooping, like law and enforcement snooping on your phone. And I do remember reading a blog that said that in the US specifically, these privacy laws apply in case your phone is locked with a numeric password, but it does not extend to fingerprints or facial recognition. If I find that article, I'll link it in the description. But these specific nuances, depending on what country you're from, you might want to bear in mind. Another myth that I've seen going on around is that facial recognition can be tricked using pictures. And I don't think that is true anymore. Although I did not have access to facial recognition technology in its earlier stages of development. But now if you try to trick it using pictures, technology can distinguish between 3D objects and 2D objects, which makes a whole lot of difference. And any kind of facial recognition works on the principle of measuring distances, and I'm assuming to a large degree depths as well. So that doesn't end up working out that way. Now, final caveat is for circumstances where you are giving your phone to someone else to tinker a little bit. This could be if you're giving your phone for repairs, or you bought another phone, you're giving your old phone away to someone else, or for that matter, if you are actually discarding your phone. In all of these three circumstances, you are vulnerable. Why? Because firstly, there's a lot of chances that your phone will land in hands you don't want it to be in. Okay? This is not something you will know about, because obviously if someone's doing something wrong, you're not going to find out about it, and you probably aren't tech savvy enough to figure it out. So how do you protect yourself against anything untoward, right? This is something I've explained before. Have an SD card. Back up whatever you can, whatever is important to you, especially pictures, onto that SD card. And whenever your phone encounters any issue, remove the SD card. All of the data that is important to you is with you, and then give the phone for whatever repairs you need it to. Go. And when you are, let's just say, giving your phone away to someone, a very normal thing, a very obvious thing is for you to hard reset your phone. Now, there exists soft reset, where a lot of apps that you were using previously, a lot of data that you were previously using is still saved on the phone. That won't work. You need to learn how to hard reset your phone, and it is better if you learn how to do it yourself. Don't ask other people to do it. Now, the third thing is, if you are throwing away your phone and you're getting a new one, it is a good idea to not throw your phone in the trash. Obviously, because like electronic waste should be treated differently, but also you don't know who's going to end up having access to the phone. Data, phones, electronics are not too difficult to revive, especially if someone's throwing them away not because they are not working anymore, but because they just got upgraded. It's a good idea to keep your phone with you, or have a trusted person just wipe out all your data from it. This is something that I learned in school long time ago, and our teacher drilled it into our heads, that there is no such thing as deletion when it comes to electronics. Data will just hide in deeper layers of the tech, which means if you think that there is something that has been, removed, it hasn't been removed. It's just hiding somewhere deeper, and maybe you'll have to pay someone a little bit more on the basis of what you're trying to retrieve. There's a really interesting anecdote, but I'm going to film it separately, and I'm going to put it at the end of the video so that people who are interested in it are the only ones who have to listen to it. Now, coming to part 2 of this video. Protecting your data against companies. Firstly, you need to understand why one would want to do it. There is something called a behavioral analysis that a lot of companies will do of the data they gather from you. Often enough, people believe that it's harmless because all it leads to is a few targeted ads, but often these are also used to predict your behavior. There are a lot of anecdotes around this. I will link them in the description. I won't be spending a lot of time on them. But a lot of people just simply do not want to be viewed or observed by other companies. And a lot of people have this thing where they don't want companies to profit off of their data, which is a very fair point. So what you want to do in such circumstances is run a full privacy audit of your phone, which means you do very boring tasks. You open your phone, and if you have a phone like mine, it ideally asks you for permission before you open or access any app, right? So for example, if Instagram wants to access your camera, it will ask you for permission first, and there you'll have three options. Always allow only when this app is in use, or don't allow. Now, I think this is a really neat feature, but most people that I know just simply click on always allow. Now, this is problematic. Why? Because when you say always allow, there is a good chance you allow always. There is a lot of news on how people's voice recordings, their daily life conversations have been recorded and sold by huge companies. Which is why you need to go on the application part in your settings, the application option, look at each and every application and see what permissions have you granted to each application. The idea here is to keep it on the minimum. If you have the option to only allow an app to use data when the app is being used, keep in mind that this could also be when the app is running in the background. You can do that. Just avoid always allow at all costs. So much alliteration. So view your phone as the main headquarters of an organization. You went to their headquarters, you asked for all of your information, and you basically told the headquarters who all is allowed to come and ask for your data, and who will receive it, and when will they receive it, right? But now you will go to these companies, which is you will go to these apps and instruct them to either delete XYZ data they have about you, or not collect more data from you. Now, deletion of data, preventing scraping of data is another subject that I'll talk about at another point, because this is ideally not related to your phone. It's related to these companies. But for now, you can actually look at all of your social media apps, go to their privacy settings and see what all do they have access to. If something doesn't suit you right, go ahead, get rid of it. Ideally, disable AI on all social media. Now, the second thing that you might want to look into, and especially if you have kids, you might want to look into the games they are playing on their phone. Games are a source of a lot of data. This is something not a lot of people understand, and sometimes even like apps that seem fairly harmless, you need to look into the game, find out what data do they collect from your phone, and if required, you can request deletion of that data. If required, you can change the privacy settings of those games. After this, you come on to other apps. I would say that the third priority in this list should be any health apps, any fitness apps, any apps even related to mental health. You go to those apps and you see what data do they have access to. Now, this is very important because often health related and fitness related apps have access to your location. This is simply so that the pedometer can work, but there are a lot of apps that can actually work without location access as well. The accuracy of these two different kinds of apps is something you may want to try and figure out, because some people would rather give location access to an app than have an inaccurate pedometer. But that really depends on who you are, what do you do, and to what extent are you okay giving out that information to a company or out into the world. This is because your health data is very sensitive. It can be misused against you. An example of this would be if you're in a country where healthcare is really difficult to gain access to, and health insurance determines whether you're able to pay for your healthcare. A lot of insurance companies will scrape data, and this will be personally identifiable data, which means that the data that has been collected can be traced back to you. They will use such databases, such setups to deny certain health insurance claims. Okay, so keeping this in mind, you have to protect your health data and see what data your health apps are collecting. This is there has been a news of Flo, the period app, which a lot of people were using. Unfortunately, a lot of people were using this app, and it was found that Flo was selling data to Facebook, Meta. So you understand that they're making a lot of money out of data. Once you're done with this, you need to double check which apps have access to your location. And this matters more if you are working in a field where your location is sensitive data. There have been instances where soldiers of particular countries have given away the data of military camps because they were using pedometers that was tracking their locations. And obviously, the most physically active people can be singled out through their fitness stats. And military personnel would be one of the fitter bunch. So if you see a lot of fit people, like completely, they are all gathered in an area, it's either a gym with a lot of gym bros, or it might be a military establishment. So the implications of your data being shared are a little bit bigger than you imagine. Now, how to make this approach a little more sustainable so that you don't have to keep running privacy audits? Again, it comes with a little more mindfulness on a daily, everyday level. From now onwards, whenever you download an app, you obviously look at their privacy policy and specifically look at where they store data. For apps that are very intimate in nature, for example, journals, spaces where you express yourself, you might want to choose apps that store all the data locally on your phone as opposed to backing it up on a cloud or their own servers. Now, the con here is that if you lose your phone, you lose access to everything that you'd filled into inside that journal. But if it is information that you rather it be deleted than it be accessible to anyone else or be misused by anyone else, this is a good approach to go about it. I have seen very limited health apps that do so, and I'm honestly myself on the search of a good health app that stores data locally. But yeah, whenever I do get a choice, I choose apps that store all of my data locally, have very clear privacy policies, have very clear data sharing policies, and notifications. So policies and notifications are different. Notification is for me, and policy is for what they undertake internally in the company. So I will read the notifications that is given to me, but I will also research the policies that they undertake within that company, and then I'll download an app. And I know you're going to be like, Sharanya, itna kaam kaun karega? Aap karoge, because you care. एक बार आपको काम लगेगा, दूसरी बार आपको काम लगेगा, but उसके बाद आपको लगेगा कि second nature है. It's the equivalent of reading the ingredients list at a shopping hypermarket, When you initially go and start reading ingredients list, you're like, this is taking so long, this is so tedious. But after a point, it becomes second nature. You look at it, you start looking at the ingredients list, you know what to look for, you know what to avoid, and it becomes a lot faster every time you do it. I'm going to discuss metadata in a very shallow manner here, but it will be discussed in detail in a different video. So metadata is allied information that comes with files, photographs, or whatever you share, right? A very simple way to explain it would be, if I have a file, metadata of that file would be, when was it created? How many times has it been accessed? On what operating system was it created? Maybe even what model number of computer made that file, right? So it's allied data that you don't really have access to when you look at it through a naked eye, but you can find out more information about the person or the thing through that file. And phone captures a lot of metadata, especially when you're clicking pictures. Gone are the days when your camera app and your phone were independent of each other. Whatever your phone knows, almost each and every inbuilt app knows. That's how things work nowadays. So if you're creating files, if you're downloading music, if you're keeping any kind of content or creating something using your phone, there's a good chance it has a lot of metadata. And depending on the file, there are different ways to get rid of the metadata. If that is something y'all are interested in, I will discuss this in a separate video. Another specific scenario is if you are a person who downloads a lot of things for their work. So this could include people who are into design. This could include people who are testers, people who assess apps, anything. If you're downloading on your phone related to work, it's a good idea to have a separate work phone. And this just sounds like such an obvious thing, right? But I'm going to try and explain to you why. The domain I work in, there are multiple instances where I have to download an app that I'm still assessing. Now, I work in privacy, so that often means that the apps I'm downloading may not have the best privacy settings, but that's my job hazard, right? But in your case, you might be downloading games, or you might be downloading apps that are still being debugged, right? In which case, having a work phone protects you from any mishap affecting your personal life, right? And there's a normal, very, very normal, obvious thing that in case you lose one phone, you will always have the other. So one facet of your life will remain unaffected. There are things you should do in case you lose your work phone. There are protocols that you must follow, but that really depends on the company you are working in. And again, that can be a separate video. This is not related to what we're doing right now. Now, the final take that a lot of people won't like is that you need to turn off your voice assistant. You don't usually need it, unless obviously you are someone who is not able to use their phone without the voice assistant. Obviously, it's a very important accessibility feature for a lot of people, but for the others, turn it off. You don't need it. And if you're not able to turn it off and you lean on it too much, make it something that you can turn on and turn off. Why am I hesitant to phrase it this way? Is because most voice assistants start working from a voice command, which could look like OK Google or Hello Siri or whatever, right? Which means that the microphone of your phone has to be on for it to hear you say it. In this circumstance, you get no way to distinguish between the moments where you want your phone to hear you and the moments where you don't want your phone to hear you. And you may think that it doesn't matter, it doesn't make a difference. Well, in that case, this video isn't for you. But to people it does make a difference to, who don't want to receive random targeted ads for things that they saw on TV or something that their child said, right? You might want to turn it off. You don't need it. Same goes for AI. A lot of phones are making AI run in their background, and you don't know how deep does this AI have access to. With this, another episode is over. I know a lot of people at this point must be wondering that these episodes are very generic, but I am trying my best to make this series accessible for everyone, which means that I will start from the bare minimum and basics for people who are now realizing that this is important and now getting familiar with technology in general. So if you think that there are people in your life or in your family who would benefit from this, especially older people, please feel free to invite them on this journey. I will see you on the next episode. Bye-bye. So I promised you a story. The place I grew up in, there was a guy who specialized in recovering deleted and corrupted files. And my teacher, and this was my computer teacher, who told me that he would never have fixed prices for anything. He would see the customer, see the client, assess their body language, and on the basis of how jittery they were, quote the price. So if you seemed really chill about whatever file you lost and you just seemed to want it for menial or nostalgia purposes, he would just quote you a normal amount. But if you were looking for a file that was really important, really urgent for you, he would quote you a higher price, irrespective of how much effort it would take him to get through that. Usually, it wouldn't be too difficult for him to retrieve any of the files, but yes, this is something that we found really cool. I don't know what the moral of this story is, but this was a cool story that stayed with me throughout.